Data science obviously is a very impactful role, impactful on the world. And it's been a game changer over the years in numerous industries, whether positive or negative.
Absolute desire to collect data about everything, um, whether legally or illegally, whether morally or.
You're watching the AI Web3 Careers podcast. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Welcome to another episode of AI Web3. Today I'm joined by Toju. I'm Ade Molajo, an ecosystem builder in the AI and Web3 world. Toju is a very good friend of mine. He actually graduated in London and jumped into the role of an actuary. After he qualified, he was seconded to Norway before he fell out of love of being an actuary and moved to Switzerland to start his data science career with Expedia. Since then, he's been in the tech world. He's now back in the UK with his wife and baby daughter. Congrats. Working remotely at Zapier, leading a team of data scientists and engineers focused on growth. Toju, good to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Good idea. I'm doing good. Just dropped the daughter off at nursery, so having a nice free day to kind of just do some of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Nice. Girl dad. Very nice.
I'm enjoying it.
Very
enjoying
good.
it. Let's put it that
Very
way.
good. Yeah, I'm proud of you, man. So my first
Wow.
question for you today is about your journey to data science. People may not know this, but we've actually been friends since 2001, at the start of the new millennium, many years ago, where we met in secondary school. Back then, I think we both had braces. I was painfully shy and into cartoons. Now the braces are gone, but I can tell you the cartoons stayed. But what I want to know is how your journey from secondary school led you to a career in data science. What pivotal moments or experiences shaped your decision to get into this field?
Wow. I remember that. I think we were both painfully shy, both had braces, both had glasses. You went to cartoons, I was into my video games. The video games I stayed as well. So yeah, back in secondary school, I think I realized from a very young age that I was lucky to enjoy math. I wouldn't say I was the best at it, but I just enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the problem solving, and there's something beautiful about seeing numbers come together and kind of prove like a theorem and stuff like that. So I've always enjoyed math. So I knew that's something I would do in my life, or have to do with math at some point. So I luckily got to London to study in King's London to study maths at university, and that was really great. I had to get there. And then when I was coming to the end of that stint, I did a statistics course, which I absolutely hated, and I said I'll never do stats again in my life. And then, but then again, I was graduating in 2010. The kind of job market was, probably kind of not that hot. I had a friend who was like, "Oh, I'm going to apply to be an actuary." And I was like, "What's that?" And then friends kind of it sounded quite a cool kind of role.
Yeah.
I kind of just jumped in as well, and did that. And lo and behold, it was all stats. But I kind of fell in love with it different because it became a way to actually apply what I learned. I think before I'd kind of just done the like theory thing, which had not been as fun, but doing like in the practical sense was a lot more fun. So I did that for quite a while. And for those who don't know, I'm actually like a data scientist, but just for like the short term. And then I did that for quite a few years, did all the exams, qualified there. But I found that what I really enjoyed was actually some of the more kind of data part of the role. And there was a time where I had a secondment in a different role, and I didn't have the normal actual tools to use to kind of do the work that you normally do with an actuary. So I had to Google like, hey, how do I do these things I can't do because I don't have the software.
Yeah, we've all
And
been
then
there.
someone said, oh, there's exactly. And someone I was like, oh, there's this software called R, and like just look into it, try it out. I just downloaded it, I tried it out for a little while. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like I could program stuff and do them myself, and I was like, okay, but how do I learn? And back then there weren't many like courses out there that learned this stuff. It wasn't as popular as it is now. So what I could do was I was like, the advice was like, oh, find data that you enjoy and use that to practice basically. And I'm into football quite a bit, so I just found data about football. I just spent my weekend just doing data science on football stuff, and that's how I learned. And I kind of put like a portfolio about that, and then that's how I got the jobs I got after that. Because everyone was like, "Wow, this is some really cool stuff." Because I was doing stuff that I could see in real life on
Yeah.
TV and could see the data at the same time, and I kind of really enjoyed that. So that's kind of how I really got data science, and that's kind of how I got my jobs and how I've just been there since really.
Wow. Wow. Exciting. It's interesting how your journey has gone to where you are today. And data science obviously is a very impactful role, impactful on the world. And it's been a game changer over the years in numerous industries. From your perspective, what's been the most significant impacts of data science, whether positive or negative, on society and business and even individuals on a whole?
Yeah, you're right. It has been quite impactful. I think I'll start with the negative, 'cause I think that one's kind of easy to answer. I think the negative one has been how to describe it, but the absolute desire to collect data about everything, um, whether legally or illegally, whether morally or immorally, whether ethically or not ethically. Like everyone, just because there's been such like data is so valuable, it's the new oil, that
Yeah,
that whole
yeah,
phrase.
yeah,
And there's been that rush to collect data everywhere, and I don't think everyone has been honest about that collection and how it's being used. So that part makes me a little bit uneasy. Just how do you use for things that I don't think it should be used for. That's probably the kind of most negative thing. On the positive side, though, I mean, it's great. Like you have stuff like your MRI scans, like machine learning kind of image
that's
recognition,
right.
that kind of stuff. You have also, I think data plays a big role in like this like operations. Like anyone want to make a decision on business, data is the kind of thing to use. Like they're driven, like data driven, like kind of research. I think also the thing I enjoy is also seeing the impact on the collective impact on society's understanding of what's going on. I think you think back
Exactly.
to like, when you have like stuff like elections going on and, people say facts,
Mm,
um, the whole like, society is a little bit more, understand a little bit more like bias and judgment data and what data doesn't look right. I
that's
think
right.
that whole education of the whole nation has been quite cool to see like that right, like stuff like the FT does with their journalism stuff. That's a really, really cool stuff. And that's kind of a really positive impact data
Yeah,
side so
yeah.
far.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the impact on business operations. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get to that in a bit. And also like that you mentioned that data is more valuable than oil now. That was actually a phrase I used on the on one of the prior interviews that I did on this
Really.
show. You also touched on AI. We're gonna get to that in a minute. But to start with, what's your timeline prediction for AGI?
For me, it's hard to kind of put time. I think there is maybe two aspects. There's the technological timeline, and then
Yeah.
there's the actually maybe I say legal or practical timeline, and I think we'll
Mm,
see it.
mm,
I think technology will be there with the pace of good, maybe like 15 to 20 years. I think we might see something like that, a little bit longer. But I don't think we'll be allowed to use it. Uh,
yeah.
I think that might take a bit longer before it's actually
Yeah.
being used by like people for real life applications. I think the technology will be there um, soon, and I think what people will do, what will happen is that we'll take bits of that technology and use it in the basis, but as a whole system, I think I fear that might not be. We'll not get there like in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right, you know. I think you're right. And when I think about artificial general intelligence, I don't just think about the good that can come out of it,
Mm, mm,
with data analysis, with healthcare. I also think of a lot of the bad that could come out of it, like how we could start robot wars, for instance, and how, because there aren't human casualties, what the extent of these wars will lead to. But I think that's a conversation for
mm.
another time. I've just been reading I've just been reading this book. by the founder of DeepMind. And yeah, it's got me thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got me thinking. But the next question I have for you is on
Exactly.
the
Spot on.
and this flows very well into what you've just said, actually, into the ethics of data science. With the field growing in leaps and bounds, obviously there are ethical questions that are being asked when it comes to privacy. For example, from the big tech firms. Don't mean to name any names, but the Googles and the Instagrams of this world come to mind, how they control so much data, and they have been known to sell this data on to other companies without the express permission of their customers. What is your take on the ethics of data science, and what considerations do you put into your work as a data scientist?
Yeah, such a important topic, Ade. I think, yeah, super important to think about. It's just like anything, like, with a lot of, I guess, power in these things and value these things, a lot of responsibility has to kind of quote Spider-Man. Have a lot of responsibility there. I think, just maybe to speak about, how I think about how me personally, maybe the industry can kind of address some of these issues.
Yeah.
I think the big one for me actually that I am quite passionate about is the bias that's in our data
Yeah.
that we have. I think when one like AI, I think that's a really good, which could be is that AI is only as good as the data that feeds into the AI. Basically, it can't get better than that, right? And that data, your data is a lot of people think I did like no, data is data. It's fact. It's objective, but it's
Yeah.
not. So much stuff goes into kind of data, like who collects it, what's
Exactly.
collected, what not collected, who kind of put it in there. So much stuff goes into that stuff, and that kind of create significant bias. And I think as a practitioner, you have to recognize that there is that bias in there, and that's why you can't let data drive decision all the time. You have to have like call it human in loop for these things and have them kind of barriers kind of protect themselves. I think
Yeah.
something that's kind of one. I think the second thing I think about a lot as a manager, especially, is also to that point is also the diversity of your team and people working on these problems. Because a good example here is that I worked in insurance, and a very common thing is that if you're a young man in London trying to buy your first car, it's so expensive, and that's because of the data says so, because like people put like young men drive fast and they kind of have more crashes or whatever. But that's not all young men. And if you do that, if you price out the market so early on at the start, trying and then they try and take shortcut to kind of get the car working
Yeah.
and kind of driving, and that kind of then creates a spiral, a loop that they kind of create shortcuts, they buy cheaper cars, they kind of cars don't work, so they have more crashes. They just create that loop, and I don't think that's how we should solve that problem by
Yeah.
just making it more expensive. So I think and I was better experienced that because I'm from London. I can talk about that stuff. So I think having people in your team who are you know diverse from different places, different
Yeah.
backgrounds, different experiences can help you kind of pick up from these biases and data. I think that's
Absolutely.
another big thing that I'll kind of call out here that we could do better
Yeah.
overall.
Struggling to stand out in the AI and Web3 job markets? There's nothing wrong with your CV. Sign up to my newsletter using the link in the description and receive a free smart job hunting guide. Leverage my step-by-step method to unlocking the network you didn't know you had, so that your resume stands out and you can land that interview fast. Very well put. Very well put. And when it comes to literacy and education, how do you go about making sure that your stakeholders are well equipped to handle data?
Oh, yes. A good question, I think. So I always think about the role of data scientist in an organization as being one where you want to help the business to make a decision as fast as possible there. If you break that down, you can see there's so many times that I'm not going to be there with my stakeholder, and then it's making a decision there, and I can't hold their hand all the way
That's
through.
right.
And I want to kind of, for me, it's all about empowering them to be like, okay, hey, you can do this yourself. You can do this stuff. So I think a lot of it is starts with my favorite word, empathy. To understand, hey, this is the language that they speak. So,
Yeah.
it's very easy for us to, I've done like, 4 years of university, excess of actual exams, whatever. I feel like I know a lot. I'm deep in the weeds, right?
That's
I've
right.
got to be like, okay, what is someone who hasn't done all that experience? How do they see data? What do they understand? What language did they use? I don't have to be perfect because I don't need to be perfect. I'm also like in the lab, right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do I communicate in a way that they understand,
That's
that makes
right.
sense to them, that not necessarily, that they can drive with? I think that's what I'm saying. It's the key thing is the language you use, communication you use, and just the patience and empathy that, hey, this isn't their skill set. They bring other skill sets to the table. So I could do that. I think also just believing that, you can't solve it all. Like it takes, you have to empower them to do it themselves. And that's where I kind of see that those three things I think are how I approach it in our org.
Exactly. Yeah, you put it so well. It reminds me of a conversation I was having with a client the other day, and they said so many people had tried to explain the technology I was talking to them about for so long, and it just didn't make sense to them until I explained it. And I figured it was because I wasn't focusing on on the technology, but I was actually focusing on the stakeholder and the value that the product would bring to them. And that's essentially it. If you focus on the person and the value you're trying to convey rather than just the technology, like you said, you're not in a lab, you're not dealing with other scientists, you're dealing with someone who's actually going to be using the data, then you can't go wrong. When it comes to the data, to the future of data science, what are the trends that you anticipate shaping the whole field?
Oh, I wish I knew. But I mean, I have some thoughts. I think from what I'm seeing so far, I think obviously like the big elephant in the room is AI and what AI does to the market. I think AI is going to transform not just data but every single role.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I think every single knowledge work, every single knowledge worker already has been transformed by AI and what they
Yeah.
do with it, what they do. So I guess I say maybe there are two aspects. Maybe there's like what I see, as AI to help data scientists do better jobs, just like any other role. And then what I see for data specifically, what is impact. I think this is gonna sound very like I don't know crass, whatever, but at the end of the day, AI is just ML, right? It's
That's
just
right.
machine learning. It's just
That's
machine
right.
learning. It's just a different form of machine learning.
Yeah.
And data science has been machine learning for years, right? So I think what I expect is that now this has can kind of react to the buzz around AI, and we can be involved in more things than we were in the past because we have this piece of like, how do you measure how accurate the model is? How do you protect from bias? How do you make sure your data pipelines work correctly? That stuff we've already solved already for ML. So it's just like,
Yeah.
how do we bring that expertise and make sure that we are in the room when people are talking about AI? Hey, we have this skill set. We know how to do this stuff. How do we help you kind of do that for AI stuff? I think that's probably where the big thing is. And then from an individual point of view, I think for us to still be relevant in the future is that we have to get better at, I think what is that, get better at engineering. How do we make sure that the stuff we build is long lasting and works with the product that we already have there? That's something that I think we can work better on as an industry across the board, really.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So on the subject of making sure that what you build is long lasting, can you expand on some of the parameters or some of the things that you have to keep in mind to make sure that that it lasts longer than maybe a specific project, but can be used for a series of projects, if you like.
Yes, that's a really good question. I think it is, first of all, with that intention to be like, hey, I want to build this, but I don't want to be too specific in the solution I'm solving here. Hey, let me think about, okay, so let's get an idea about something. Hey, what else can I build this for at the same time? Just to have that thought helps you think, okay, how do I generalize my solution here a little bit to kind of make sure it lasts longer? Also go to like the choice of tech you use, it can be used in closed source, open source?
Yeah.
Is it something like, is it like that? Or is it something like, is it just a really expensive tech, which not everyone can use and
Yeah.
might not be around in the future? Or is it kind of like, that's kind of a little bit more accessible? And like many people know as well, is
Yeah,
it something
that's
like,
right.
the whole team understands, that kind of stuff. So like, build it past yourselves. Thinking more about, hey, how can, if in 10 years time I wasn't the one here, would the still thing be able to work?
That's
And
right.
someone can get onto it. Again, big thing, documentation.
Yes.
Do that stuff, document it. You're like, this is how it works, this is how it doesn't work,
Mhm.
how to fix it, all that stuff. I think kind of things you think about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Even though documentation might be super unsexy, it is very crucial for any system, any implementation. So, can you talk to me about collaboration? You have mentioned working with interdisciplinary teams a bit, but can you delve deeper into this? As a data scientist, what's required for collaboration across teams?
Wow, good question. So maybe I'll start with my context, right? So I'm in a data science team, and I work with engineers, product managers, designers, finance, marketers. So like the pretty much every role you can think of in a company kind of work with. The data touches so many areas there. So it's important. I think I'll go back to the point around empathy, and trying to understand the perspective that they're coming from.
Mhm.
So when I was taking stakeholders, one thing I do is I tend to read what they read, right? So let me
Yeah,
read about how to be product manager. Let me understand what they consider their role, their role is. What are they interested in? What they're thinking about? How do I understand where they're coming from? Because like I said, just like you said earlier, you know, it's a kind of help to understand what do they need, right?
that's
Because
right.
that's kind of how you can with someone, you make a because you think about, okay, how can I meet their needs as opposed to me saying, hey, I have this, I give the person. It's more about, hey, what do you need? And let me kind of tailor what I have to kind
That's
of meet
right.
your need, right? So I think empathy and understand that is a big thing to kind of do that. I think just generally as well, just talking to people, people are human beings, and
Exactly.
and I'm a big fan of like, if I work with you, I want to kind of know a little bit more about you outside of work a little bit,
Mhm.
just that kind of, who are you? Do you have a family? Like, what are your hobbies? Kind of a different level, helps to bring out the human in someone, and you never know, that kind of conversation can then bring out something that helps you translates a data concept in something that they understand a bit better,
Exactly.
So that's how so that's I think about it. So it's all about just, connecting on the human level and just being empathetic. I think are the kind of the two key things I think will solve a lot of those, uh, coordination things that you might tension you might have.
Very well put. And my final question for you, Toju. For someone who's looking to get into the data science field, what are some words of wisdom that you have for them?
Oh yeah, it's been a while since. So if you're just starting off, words of wisdom, I'd say is, I think my advice is quite general, actually. It'd be find a mentor.
Yeah.
I think find a mentor, find someone who's already in there, they can ask questions to, and they can tell you, for your particular thing you're interested in, then they can tell you, where to go, what to do, they can bounce ideas off you. 'Cause I think, it's very hard to separate like the hype of what
Hmm.
people think data science is, like, like you mentioned, like, oh, maybe it's fancy AI. I don't build models, AI models every day. In fact, maybe a small percent of that's a job, right? It's like, what are the actual things you want to kind of do there, and how do you kind of get from the hype to the actual core functions there? But I think apart from that, I think the other things I would encourage someone to do is learn SQL. That's probably one of the oldest languages that is out there, and is still being used to today. Probably the core language that you see everyone using. And then I'd say, funny enough, I wouldn't say good. I'd say trying to understand the business aspect. I think that's probably where data scientists, as what data scientists don't always focus on as much, is like, hey, not just I don't mean the stats and the tech and all that. That's all really cool stuff, but actually, what's the impact of the business? Like, how does this company make money? And then you go back, okay, how am I use that? Because data is just a tool, right?
That's
And you
right.
don't want to kind of just become an expert in a tool. You want to be like, okay, how do I have the impact with one of these with a tool from a tool belt, basically. And that's kind of that frame of thinking, I think, is kind of what I think people should focus on as they kind of enter this field.
Yeah, very well put. Thanks so much, Toju. You've dropped so many words of wisdom on the listeners today. I'm sure that they have a lot to go away and think about, and I'm sure they're going to be better in their field. Those who already are in the field, and those who aren't, I'm sure that they're going to make amazing data scientists because of everything that you've shared with us today. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ade. It's been fun. And like I, one thing I'll call out quickly is that if anyone who wants to be in the field and always in the field and they're still starting out, I'm happy to be that mentor. So happy to kind of reach out to me on Twitter or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
talk
sure.
about this all day. So, yeah.
And how can they find you on Twitter?
Oh yeah, so Twitter, I'm at Tojuso, so TOJYOUSO. Just send me a DM. I think my DMs are open. If not, find me on LinkedIn, search my name, I'll be there. And I'm happy to connect with people and just chat data, AI, ML all day long. Yeah.
Amazing. Not only is he knowledgeable, but he's also generous with his time. Thanks, Toju.
Take care, Ade. Good to see you again.